I'm really not sure what to say about these love poems, except some of it probably had something to do with my mother dying, and some of it had to do with I just couldn't stand the thought of something happened to me that I didn't leave at least a handful of love poems for my kids and my wife. So I think that's pretty much the reason that these appeared, but and they happened very quick. There's one poem, the first poem is for my youngest boy, Shy, and it was, I guess it was written in '77 or something, because he was a little kid then. But all the others are fairly new. So I'm going to start with the proem. This is a proem sort of introduces a suite of poems. So this is my proem. It's called Love and Poetry. Of love and poetry, I know nothing. The heart, a bag of tricks. These poems, a lucky pull of the rabbit from a hat. Okay, I'm sorry, one more time. Time out one more time.
Does that rabbit have a symbol there?
Okay, this is for Shy, my youngest boy, called Summer Ghost. The child is sleeping. His bed is covered in moonlight. The small body glows as if a lamp burned inside. Moths gather to dance their wild silence above his head into the dream unfolding, like smoke through a single string of light. And this next one's for my oldest boy, Dane. And I wrote this before he got married, so it doesn't apply anymore. Anyway, it's called What to Look For in a Woman, for Dane. First, make sure she wants to know what kind of man you are. She'll see your heart and stand in long lines just for a shot. And remember, give in to the mystery. Accept its magnitude. Love is simple courage, and you'll need it to prove your bravery. I wish I had something better to tell you, but what I know is this. The fingertip touch to your true love's lips, the light as a butterfly brush of her breast, the culmination of life and death, that's where you want to be looking. And this next poem I wrote after I saw Sandra Day O'Connor on TV. It's called The Walk Home. When Sandra Day O'Connor left the bench of the Supreme Court, it was love that sent her packing. Ravaged by Alzheimer's disease, her once brilliant husband now needed her more than she needed the court. When finally the inevitable crossed paths with the insidious, he no longer knew her. His own sons, now strangers. One morning on a visit, she saw him in the hospital garden, holding another in his arms. The doctors say this sometimes happens, that love's persistence is the last to go. And she tells his story to America on the 5 o'clock news. Her great dignity forged by her love of this man. There's some joy in his life again, she tells us, and that's all that matters. With her sons at her side, she turns from the cameras and begins the long walk home. And this next poem, like I was saying, that I sort of turned on to the Tong and Sung Dynasty poets. I always loved them. And they had this tradition of writing these farewell poems, and there was always something really touching and beautiful about it. I love them. So I did my modern version of one of those, and I cleverly titled it Farewell. So, farewell. I wore the sweaters you gave me wrapped in layers, one over the other, wrapped like love against the bitterest winter in years. But this land refuses to stay cold long. Already there's talk of resuming work and repairing rain gear. The snow long gone, from blankets of rain the sea blows in. It's only after the earth grows warm that I walk inside, see your gifts hanging on the chair, one over the other, that my heart leaps and drops in a single beat, remembering you are gone. Apology. I still remember that morning in Utah. It was early. I woke up to you, crying. It was the first, and as it turned out, the last time I ever saw you in tears. I'm leaving you, you told me. I don't want to, but I must. I was too young, only 19, and in matters of the heart, dumb as a sack of hammers tossed into love's deep end. So I didn't believe you. Turned over, went back to sleep. A little shy of 35 years now, I hear from old friends that your 2 grown daughters are as beautiful as you. My 2 boys are grown too, and a grandson, for God's sake. Not much in my life I'm sorry for. It's true, though. There were other women back then. But only you became a poem. And this is the title poem, Lesson Learned. Stunning. The heart's capacity to endure the ragged beat of unclaimed love. It's only then that the soul goes feral, the mind wild and weedy. The heart has its limits, though. Even the coyote has enough sense to chew off a leg to escape the iron trap. And I've got 3 poems here for my wife. I always have to say this, people. It's complicated, not worth going into, but my boys, Dane and Shy, and I were together before I met Pat. She was away on a little trip. The boys' dad was a good guy, but not a good dad. So the kids and I had a relationship, and we all took to each other like ducks to water. So then I met Pat a couple months after this, a few months after this. So anyway, that's sort of backstory to this poem. It's called Nice to Meet You, for Pat. You were wearing jeans and a thin black sweater, doing dishes in Amigo's kitchen sink. That old drunk of a wood stove was tamped way down, drooling just enough alder smoke to keep the world fragrant. You didn't see me come in. I stood quiet by the stairway, watching you. I don't know. Maybe it was all those soapy bubbles, or your wet and slender fingers working the sponge across a dinner plate, or maybe just the shift of your hip as you pushed aside a strand of hair from your forehead. But there was no doubt. My mind was meandering. Then the kids blew in, bouncing across the kitchen floor, still excited by their mother's return. They spotted me grinning down at them. "Finn's here! Finn's here!" And that warm, feather-lined chaos barreled towards me. You wiped your wet hands, looked at me and smiled. And when you did, everything evil in this world disappeared. "So you're Finn," you said. "It's nice to finally meet you."